Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another Tuesday night edition of the Gaming Fuse Podcast, episode number 4. I'm your host, Mr. Boom Boom Kaboom. It's Noof Nukem in the room, and with me as well, my dynamite panel, starting with the man that you see at the bottom of your screen. He is so huge, they call him Titan.
What's up, everybody? I want to start doing on my intros, because I love G Fuel so much, man. I want to start sharing some of my G Fuel experiences with you guys, and I think if you haven't tried G Fuel, man, it is a really good sugar-free drink. Gives you a good pep, and there's so many flavors. And the reason why there's so many flavors is why I kind of want to get into this, because I'm going to start off with, here's a good starter for you. Maiden's Blood from Resident Evil. That's a good starter one if you haven't tried any. It tastes really good. A lot of movie-based ones or game specific game name-based ones, they struggle in flavor sometimes, but that's one fantastic one. Anyways,
cool.
Chat, how's it going? Yeah, that's right. I'm ready to get the show started. What about you guys?
Oh, yeah.
You didn't do your tagline.
Tag, we'll save that for the end.
Alrighty. Yes, and with us, the Canadian Mr. Clean. Yes, Mental9R is here. He's ready to go tonight. And,
is that his tagline?
Topics.
Canadian Mr. Clean. There you go. Yeah, looking forward to it, guys. Definitely. Let's get the ball rolling. We got some juicy things to talk about.
That's right. That family in the background, they've been standing there waiting for the show to start.
Oh, yeah, dude's still taking a piss there in the one corner, too.
All right, indeed. Well, we hope all the panel and, the chat has been taking their piss, because we're going to get right into some pissy topics. Well, certainly pissy depending on which side of the fence you happen to be on. Some people, it's been dragged on a very long time, but we're going to kind of get into it a little bit because it's been sort of all over the place, certainly all over the news. Obviously, unless you're living under a rock, you know that Microsoft is in a heated entanglement with the FTC, the court case proceedings, trying to get this thing closed up before the deal is supposed to end on July the 18th, and trying to, put forth their arguments as to why, this deal, Activision Blizzard merger, whatever, is good for the industry, good for Microsoft, and the FTC trying to find out or trying to make a case as to why it isn't good for gamers. So we're going to get into that, but let's catch up with the chat real quick because we got some amazing people. The who's who, including a longtime fan of the show, Mr. Timothy Dixon, is in the building. We got Titan's wife, the better half, Princess Zelda, is lurking in the background. What is up, Zelda? Good to see you. We got the one and the only, one of the biggest and best supporters out there, Doggy Dog, barking his way into the chat. What's going on, brother? John 907 hanging out with us as well. Good to see you here. Great evening. We've got, who else we got going on here? We got Talos Ray. Yes, it wouldn't be a great podcast, but Talos Ray here. Doggy Dog, first guy in with the super chat. As always, he drops on hot. Titan Drago, take it away, my brother.
Good evening, new panel and chat.
There you go. He makes it short and sweet. And a la petite, our Rob, Mr. R-Double, we call him on Xbox. A great fellow to play games with, and it's been a long time, my brother. Let's get back at it. Audible Fart is here, so this is going to be a stinker when he's in the building. We got Mogsy here as well. Good to see you in the chat. And I think Crazy Greek Dude's hanging out with us. That guy is a legend when it comes to Rocket League. My God.
Yeah, he is, man.
Rectangle here as well. Rock88, RWK88. So, yes, great people already in the chat. I hope I acknowledged everyone so far because you guys are amazing. And we appreciate you, each and every one of you, for coming out here. We're going to call you Rock, RWK. I just called it short for Rock. Rock88. There you go. It's got a ring to it, right?
There was a little while that I was almost at Greek's level, man. There was a little while I was like, because I played with my friends or whatever, and you get skill based matchmaking, whatnot, and you're ranking this and that. And I played with him, and it's like, oh my God, these people are hitting it like on average at 30 feet in the air. It feels like, man, but there was a while I was getting that point, man, and haven't played it much in a while, but I'm starting to get back into it with Iceman. Hopefully we'll see Iceman in the chat tonight.
Yeah, I want to get back to it as well. We need to do a community games night with Rocket League at the helm for sure. It's a lot of fun. Even if you suck at it, it's still a great game, a lot of fun. And
you can always mix and match teammates, someone good with someone bad, whatever.
Absolutely.
Man.
Absolutely. Yeah, we got to do that again real soon. What did you guys, real quick, what have you guys been playing? And I know a lot of people still playing Diablo 4, and I do have a question for the chat and for the people that are on my Xbox friends list. What's with all the private parties and no joining games? Like, everybody's like, yeah, join me anytime. Come play some Diablo. We'd love to have more friends. And I go down through like 90% of the people playing Diablo 4 have got their party's locked out, so you don't even know who's in their party. And they got their things locked out, so you can't just jump in and join them. And it's like, you start to feel like oh my God, like what's going on here?
Well, it's like once you got a full party, then there you might.
I want to play with some people, but nobody wants to play with me, fuckers.
You gotta like set it up, man. I actually uninstalled it for. I bought Jedi Survivor, so I've been rolling through that, and holy crap, is that game freaking awesome, man! Loving it. A lot of pop-in, but boy, oh boy, I played it at 30 frames. Let me tell you, man. When Starfield comes out, we're gonna be hurting. I'm telling you, man. It's gonna.
The visuals in Starfield are so impressive. Your face will be melting in another direction.
30 frames, man. It takes it away. Fucking, I put it back in the performance mode, and freaking Star Wars Survivor is like sweet, man. I'm loving it.
No comment from me, man. I'm not a 30 frames guy, so
it never used to bother me. It never really did. Like the Scorpio, like that thing ran 30 frames like a champion, at 4K. Yeah. But it's been like these few years I've been playing in 60 frames. Smite, freaking some games in 120.
Yeah.
And it's like when you knock it down to 30, it's noticeable.
It's hard to believe there's still so many 30 frames a second game when clearly if you did a poll tomorrow, it would be unanimous that most gamers prefer and want their games at 60. So it's like, even if that means you have to make a few concessions to get it to run properly on the hardware and perhaps add stuff later on, like maybe go back and you add the ray tracing and stuff once you've had enough time to dabble with the game or work out the kinks. But, I'll gladly turn off some of those, bells and whistles in the graphics department in order to get the frame rates. I think a lot of us agree on that because at the end of the day, all these games look pretty damn good with or without ray tracing and all that sort of stuff. So I don't know. I don't understand what the big hiccup is.
Thimber in the chat says, how about Final Fantasy 16, 30 frames per second and 720p?
Right.
Like, holy crap. Like, is that real? Like, holy smokes. I heard they wouldn't even have that problem if it was on an Xbox because of like one of the tools they got or whatever. I forgot which one, VRS or...
Well, we know over at Sony there's lots of tools over there, and we're not talking about the hardware.
Tools. Mental, it is VRR, right? That would kind of save the frame rate and whatnot.
Well, that's just your variable refresh rate. It
Right.
would be something like VRS, or I think
VRS.
Sony's got some sort of a customized version of that is supposed to be very similar and kind of yet to be proven, I think, from my perspective. But it's the VRS is like variable rate shading, and it basically what it does is it'll focus in and give you the highest resolution stuff that tends to be where the gamer is looking, which is the middle of the screen. Yeah. And as things move out to the sides, they'll reduce the detail a little bit in order to save some GPU cycles. But it doesn't necessarily mean in a lot of these games that you're going to get better frame rate, because the big problem we're running into is mostly CPU. So it's CPU bottlenecks.
Man, it's like even with these next gen systems, that was one of the things they really toted. They don't have. What was the old CPUs running it? What was the architecture of the old CPUs?
The old Jaguar.
Jaguar, yes. Like it was
Mobile.
such a big thing to move on from them Jaguar cores, and we're still running into issues.
So,
that's frustrating.
I got into it a little bit in one of the previous episodes, but it comes down to the game engines, guys. It's like you're dealing with game engines that were built for DirectX 11 in an era when you had essentially 4 threads. That's it. And in an era where we have 16, those engines just aren't aware of the extra CPU they've got to use. So that's why you see, and I use Plague's Tale all the time as an example. It came out, ran at 30, gave him a bit of time after launch. Suddenly it's using all 16 threads, and now you can get 60. It's because
Right.
with 4
Amazing.
threads, the Zen 2 CPU is just not fast enough to keep a 12 teraflop GPU full. That's it.
Man.
It can't push enough data through that PCIe bus to keep that GPU from getting hungry. And when it gets hungry, you get those choppy things where you'll have that 1% low, that big dip and stuff as the CPU tries to catch up. As soon as you got all 16 threads working on the problem and pushing that data, Bob's your uncle, you can get 60 FPS. So.
And this, my friend, is why we have Mental9R on the panel, so that way we can have a scholar in here to school the imbeciles. Okay?
Include you. It makes me feel like an imbecile at times.
No intent, but hey, been doing this stuff a long time. So.
That's awesome. No,
Awesome,
I'm glad we got somebody who can break it down for us. That's amazing.
Cool.
Spider-Man 356 is in the house. What's going on? Thimber is here as well. Our Rob's still hanging out with us. Tell us, Ray. John 907. The chat is just absolutely rolling right now, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Hit that like, comment, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family, get them in here. Let's boost up these subs and get more people out for this fantastic panel that we have and this great show. Next week, by the way, we're probably going to have one of our first guests here, so I'll announce that later on. But in the meantime, let's get right into the chat because, like I said, we want to keep this podcast rolling. 13 minutes into the hour right now. Sorry about the intro again tonight. Still couldn't get my computer to run it for some reason. I'm not sure if it's a Streamlabs thing or StreamYard thing at this point because it runs just fine when I play it off of my the video program that I run it with. If I'm watching it in the background, it's fine. But when I try to run it through here, it just chokes and chugs and all that sort of stuff. Curry Cosmos or Christina, she's in the house. What's going on? Good to see you here as well. So, all right, let's get into it. FTC, this thing has been dragging on for a long time. They're certainly one of the stalwart and biggest roadblocks to Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard. But the court case is certainly heating up. I've been getting bits and pieces and watching different podcasts have been talking about it, and it certainly sounds like Microsoft has been saying a lot of interesting things up on the stands. Certainly, if you look at it from this perspective, it's looking a lot better in their favor at this point in time. But what do you guys know about it so far? Where do you think we're at? And why do you think, most importantly, the FTC is so dead set against Microsoft? I mean, basically, they're trying to crucify them for a future that hasn't happened. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the Terminator getting ready to kill John Connor because he's going to lead the resistance to take down Skynet, kind of a deal going on here. So stuff hasn't happened yet. Microsoft, has certainly proven that yes, they're in third place in the console conundrum. They're spending a ton of money. What did we hear for years? We heard fans from the other side. We heard the other side say well, if Microsoft wants to compete, they need to act like the juggernaut they are. So they go out now, they act like the juggernaut that they are. They spend the money, they bring in the studios, as we've seen already. Sony has been pulling exclusives time and time again off of the Xbox platform for whatever reason. Final Fantasy 16 being the latest. I mean, when 15 was a multi-plat, now this one's exclusive, not a time exclusive, but exclusive. And we've seen some other instances where they've thrown some big money out there to keep this stuff off Xbox, to keep all the marketing rights. So the average person in the public, even when they are multi-plat a lot of times, still thinks that the game is only on PlayStation because of the way that they've been always craftily wording the words. So what do you guys think is going on here? Where do you look at it? Anything stand out to you in this trial so far as to what's been going on? Either one of you guys can take it away on this.
Well, from my perspective, I think it's hearings or trials, whatever you want to call them, with both the CMA and the FTC now, if nothing else, it has proven 100% that these government bodies have no clue about video games. This is an ideological crusade, for lack of a better way of putting it, where you have people that know very little about the industry that they're investigating doing what they think is a good job because, hey, Microsoft, big tech equals bad. And I don't see it any other way than that, to be perfectly honest. It strikes me as purely ideological, and there's really no meat here. The more they talk, the dumber they sound. And the reality is, I thought the CMA was a bunch of clowns. And then here comes the FTC and says, hold my beer, we got this. And now we're seeing it, right? Their arguments are ridiculous.
Be a warning flag that so many other places and so many other commissions around the world approved of this deal, and it's basically the FTC and was it the CMA as the only two major ones standing in the way here?
Exactly. I mean, honestly, I think my last check, it was around 40 countries have approved this now without concession of any kind. And then you have, okay, the EU comes along and they say, well, cloud gaming, maybe we should be concerned about that because maybe in some magical future it will take over the world. So we should probably have some concessions there. But Microsoft, you've already done a good job with that. What we see is good enough. Thank you very much. Go ahead. What the FTC and the CMA are smoking, I don't know. It's pretty strong stuff, though, because they're completely out to lunch. I mean, the FTC, the only thing they're consistent with is shooting themselves in the foot. So,
yeah, and have you heard some of the questions to Phil Spencer? I guess they're grilling him, and from what I heard, it sounds like they're asking him, is this going to be exclusive? Is it going to be exclusive? To the point where the judge, cut him off of questions when they got to the point of, is what did they say? Is what game?
Diablo.
Is Call of Duty going to be put in Sony's
cloud service?
Cloud service, yeah. What? That tells me it's they're really fighting for Sony. They're not fighting for the consumer. Those aren't consumer-based questions.
Not at all. Not at all. No, you're 100% on that. I mean, they've mentioned Sony, I think, more in this case, and Sony's interests and what's going to happen to Sony than they've ever. Have they ever said anything about consumers?
It was it's funny you say that. Someone did that. Someone tweeted that out. It was like a 77-11 ratio. They mentioned Sony 77 times, and consumers are like, what the hell, man?
Yeah, and you read what their mandate is, right? And it's to protect consumers. That's their mandate.
Yeah, supposedly. What's
okay,
showing?
So are they thinking it's because the largest install base is on PlayStation, so they've got a lot more to lose per se if this goes through? Are they worried that Microsoft is going to make everything exclusive here? Is that the thing, or is this largely a play from Sony pushing the fact that they just don't want to lose those marketing rights to Call of Duty because that's been a flagship seller for them?
Well, got to first of all, you got to know you're not going to have marketing rights, and that's a ridiculous question. Right. Now, the other part you said was kind of interesting, because there's a few different angles that could be looked at from these questions, but all we have are the questions that are being asked, and the way it's all right, if I put myself in their shoes and I'm asking, because most of these questions are about exclusivity. So what does the real question, I guess, would be is what does the consumer lose out if it goes exclusive to Xbox? Because up till now, Sony gets an exclusive. People are just buy a PlayStation. Why don't you buy a PlayStation? Just get a PlayStation. That's been for how long right now, right?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And until Microsoft starts swinging back, spending some money, and then it's they're getting taken to court. It just doesn't make sense. It's overkill.
No, it doesn't.
And that's the way society is nowadays. I feel like it's overkill for everything.
I'm going to try to look at this from the side of being a PlayStation person. I have PlayStation. I love PlayStation, right? But generally speaking, I play most of my multiplats on Xbox because that's where my friends are. So I do kind of see that as being an issue. But if the games are still going to be there, certainly the multiplayer games, and Microsoft has proven they haven't taken away Minecraft from Sony at all, and they intend to keep it there because it's a big moneymaker for them, and which is one of their plays. Right now, this is one of their plays in court is saying, look, we could have taken Minecraft off, but we didn't. We left it there. We continue to support it. The only reason it hasn't been optimized for PlayStation 5 is because they didn't give us the dev kits for the PS5. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the thing is, So, as me, like I'm trying to look at this from the PlayStation side, right? I get the marketing aspect. I know, like, they're still going to do well. Jim Ryan said they will be okay. They will do just fine. They are the market leader, and it doesn't matter how many studios Xbox buys tomorrow. They're still going to trail largely behind in countries that are just not into the Xbox ecosystem, right? So they're going to be fine. So looking at it from a Sony perspective, I don't really. The only thing I'm not going to see really is I might not see ads anymore. That's where there's Call of Duty on the box around the commercials, but I can still go out and get the game. So at the end of the day, as long as you can play and they don't gimp anything, they don't turn around and make the versions absolute dog shit just because they're on play. And I don't think they'll do that because it's not in their best interest, right? They're going to sell more games. They're still going to sell more Call of Duties and stuff on the PlayStation platform than they will on Xbox, unless obviously they're going to go on Game Pass and they're going to do huge numbers there. But from a PlayStation standpoint, there really isn't much to lose here outside of the the perception, the market perception.
Yeah. You bring up an interesting point that, in that comment by Jim Ryan or that email, that goes back to January 2022, like days after this whole thing was announced. And the reason he sent that email was because he'd been talking with the likes of Phil Spencer, and you can see he clearly felt confident that Call of Duty would remain on PS5. So what was with the World Tour and crying that, oh no, you can't trust these guys and we're going to pull this off? He went around, and this is the thing I don't get. He went around lying to government agencies that were like in the middle of an investigation. Is there not laws against that? How is this guy not worried about the fact that this has been exposed now, that he willfully and knowingly traveled around crying to anyone that would listen that, hey, Microsoft, they're going to take these games away and that's going to put us in the grave. Like, Sony won't survive this and PlayStation will be 6 feet under and we're all going to die. The world will end and you need to block it because good guy Sony needs it, right?
And most of the world looked at him and laughed at him off like a clown that he is, as
exactly.
they should have.
Yeah.
But you got two people still fighting the good fight, I guess, for like that.
Yeah.
If that's what you want to call it. Like, that's a terrible name for it because it's just not what it is, but I guess to their own self-preservation, I guess that's what they could call it.
Yeah, and I mean, I get the guy's got to do what he's got to do, right? Like, you want to try and defend your interests, and obviously it's in their best interests for Microsoft not to own this Activision Blizzard king, right? That makes sense. But to be caught lying about it and, inflating numbers or doing whatever it was, I mean, we know that already the math was flawed that the CMA used not once but twice. So yeah, I'm going to believe everything they've got to say. But the simple fact is he was misrepresenting the situation to government officials. So how is that not something scary? And I don't want to get all political or anything. Like, it's just from my perspective, if I was Sony and I was Jim Ryan, I'd be a little bit concerned that you've been outed.
Yeah.
Just me. I don't know.
And it's like, does anyone really truly wonder why he isn't there? Like, imagine him on the stand. Oh my God, let Microsoft lawyers dig into him like Phil Spencer's been getting dug into. Oh my God, there would be no PlayStation tomorrow. That's what would be the end of PlayStation is Jim Ryan.
Maybe he's worried about getting arrested for lying. He left the country, I think. I heard he was out of the country even, but I don't know.
Right.
Who knows?
I got more important things to do than apparently this that I travel all around the world to try and stop. I got more
Yeah. And why was his testimony sealed, right? Like, they did have that video, I guess, of his deposition. Why was that sealed? Why don't we get to know what he said? It all seems a little bizarre to me, but maybe it's because there was a lot of financial stuff disclosed, and that you do have to protect because of stock markets and whatnot.
Well, and that's another weird thing. Was Microsoft's numbers redacted when they went over those documents? No.
A lot of them were. There was some stuff that
there was some stuff that got through, right? Should it have?
Was, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Like, you're absolutely right. Like,
what do you guys think about that? that interesting email that they took an excerpt from Matt Booty. Is I'm just bringing it here up on the screen. I'm looking at it through Twitter. It says, "We, Microsoft, are in a very unique position to be able to go spend Sony out of business. Sony is really the only other player who could compete with Game Pass, and we have a 2-year and 10 million subs lead." So this is definitely one of those flames to the fire that they're going to use as ammunition as much as they can. You think there's any justification there, or is that just figuratively speaking? Because we know that they're not going to put Sony out of business here.
Yeah, it's all about context, right? I'd like to know the context of why that email was sent. And we're seeing an excerpt of it. What was the whole email? Do we see the whole thing? I don't know. I haven't looked.
No, that's just an excerpt from the whole email. Yeah. We don't know the context of the rest of it, but that's just, yeah.
I mean, I say stuff in email, which, mind you, not in recent years because I'm a little smarter now, but, early on that could have got me in trouble without proper context, right? Just in the business dealings that I've got to do. And, you say things sometimes. It's just probably not the best, but I'm much more careful now, I guess. It's the reality of it. You see stuff like this, and I don't want to get in trouble for something I've said in an email. But nonetheless, it's all about context. And sure, there's other companies that could... Sorry, just one sec. But there's other companies that could spend Sony out of existence, too. He was just stating a fact. I don't think... Whatever, right, is my opinion.
And when things get taken out of context, worst comes to worst, like we were at a trial, that's the time for that stuff to be put out there, right? That's the time for there shouldn't be any out of context in a trial, because we all need to, granted not us, but everyone in that courtroom needs to know what the exact point of saying that was, and exactly the context of who, what, why, when, and where.
Yeah.
And that's not the only email that was sent by Matt Booty that's been referenced in this trial. There was another one too. And I responded on that one. These are the viewpoints of one guy in one cog in the big wheel of Xbox, Does Matt Booty even run the show? No.
Right.
So he's just a cog in the wheel. Why?
Right.
It's grasping for straws. This should be thrown away.
Right. But see, here's a good positioning statement from Phil Spencer to the court. Right. Phil says, when we heard that Starfield was potentially also going to end up skipping Xbox, we can't be in a position as a third-place console where we fall further behind in our content ownership, so we had to secure the content to remain viable in the business. So they knew either which way. They're going to spend money hand over fist trying to buy all these licensing or marketing deals for these games, or they're going to pony up the real big money and buy them out so they can have those games and they're secured for sure. Now they have the control. That's all it is. If they want to license those games out to Sony's platform, great. But at the end of the day, now Xbox has that control. They don't have to worry about Sony coming in and sweeping them out from underneath the rug. And it sounds like they were apparently trying to do that.
And when this all goes through, when this whole deal goes through, I guarantee Sony, even after this trial, they're not going to play nice. They're gonna pull more crap like not giving Xbox the PS6 dev kits. There's going to be so much more of that, and I'm willing to bet this ends up back in court at some point down the line or something, or maybe even Xbox will just kind of give in to Sony, because they tend to do that a lot. Sony's like this bully, and they just keep giving in to them, man. Like this trial was the first time that they've really stood their ground, and it's like, enough is enough. They keep playing the victim to PlayStation, and they keep crying foul. Well, it's time to take a stand, literally, in Phil Spencer's case right now.
Yep.
And let me ask you this, Mental. What do you think the FTC really stands to gain out of this by what? Is this a swinging the big balls kind of thing over here? What is their stance? What are they going to gain? Oh, we stood up against Microsoft, like the tyranny of American corporations. We don't want them to monopolize anything. They did it in the past. They're going to do it again.
Yeah, like I said earlier, man. I think so. Yeah, big tech bad, right? And big companies bad, everything bad, and they can't do anything right or can't do anything good, I guess.
Well, let me
is
tell you
the
this:
comment,
Xbox. This is what the fourth console in Xbox's ecosystem now, and they haven't dominated shit. Okay, so
Yeah.
that should also be a feather in their cap. It comes to this contest. Like it's not like they came in and they wiped anyone out of the industry. They didn't bring the 360 in and put PlayStation out of business. They didn't put anybody out of business. PlayStation did, however, make a good point of putting Sega out of business.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. Like I say, I don't know. I think their probably only shot at a win here is to finally agree to some concessions on maybe one of the contracts Microsoft has already offered. Go the path of the EU and then make it look like, well, at least we got that. But the EU kind of beat them to that already anyway. So to me, there's no win here for the FTC. Personally, I don't know what judge nor even a jury, if this was a trial by jury, I don't see what jury would side with the FTC. They've got just nonsensical arguments that, in the real world, they're completely illogical. They look irrational.
When they read that email,
this one coming in from our good friend Axel1324 from the Iconic Video Games Podcast. He drops $5. Titan.
Hell yeah, spend that bag, Microsoft, just like I spent $5 on the gaming fuse.
Thank you so much, Axel. Appreciate the support, my brother. And you're doing a great job over there on Good Morning Xbox. Keep it up, my friend. Yeah, who else is going on? Jaguar Gaming Network's in the house. Remake Station 5 is here. Curry Cosmos, Talus Ray, Doggy Dog. Thimber's in the building. We see Sir X-Man hanging out with us as well. John 907. We got Jim Ryan in here with the eyeballs open. Spider-Man 356 is in the building. What is going on? There you go. We're caught up with the chat, I think.
What's up, Jim? I'm not going to give you any tips, man. I hope you bury yourself even farther.
Oh, man.
Dirty tech.
Well, you guys know this deal is bad for Sony. I want to put it to bed.
When they read those emails about Jim saying that they'll be fine, the questions still continue to be about where these games are going. Not only Call of Duty, but like other games like Diablo. And Phil Spencer, like. I think it was the judge finally just like was getting pissed and asked him, will you put this on PlayStation? He's like, yes, I'll raise my hand. He's probably tired as hell after getting grilled by all these worthless, ridiculous questions. They're just trying to hey, give us a yes or no answer. We'll loop back around to it. And then we'll say, oh, well, remember when you said yes to this one? And that's what Mag made that video about the ridiculous facts.
Yeah, that was funny.
That's exactly what they were trying to do to him. They're just trying to get him up on this on something ridiculous that's that we all know that we all know what the facts are, and they're just trying to it's that lawyer game, man. They were trying that attorney was really trying to play the lawyer game, trying to get him to say something not properly, I guess you could say, and then he would loop back around to it, and it just never did. Why do you think they never did that, him or Sarah Bond? Maybe because this really is their strategy. Maybe because in that email that Jim Ryan said, when he said we're going to be fine, this isn't about exclusivity. Maybe that because it's not. Maybe because it is about putting your neck to PlayStation's throat and making them, really changing the industry up. That's what it's about. Getting out of this loop of selling games, buying exclusive deals, getting the marketing rights.
Yeah, you're onto something there. It comes down to forcing Sony to compete in a way they don't want to. Mm-hmm. Sony doesn't want to be consumer friendly. They don't want to offer options. They want the status quo because they're winning at that. As soon as they start having to do something else, hey, life gets a bit hard. Everybody hates change.
Well, the Game Pass model is scaring the devil out of the industry, right? I mean, Google came in and tried to do a lot of things that Xbox was doing, but was poorly executed. That didn't mean that Google didn't have the means or the know-how, but I think they were just trying to be a little bit ahead of the game. People weren't ready for it. I mean, going all cloud and having no sort of console and no set-top box, where there's installs and things like, they did some things right. But at the end of the day, too, we all know it is about exclusives. It is about the games. It doesn't matter how cheap you are. It doesn't matter necessarily the power that you contain inside that plastic box under your TV. Nintendo is living proof. Nintendo survives 95% alone on their games. Think about that. And they have the worst console in every ends of the word. They have a shitty online infrastructure. They have shitty voice chat. They have shitty hardware. Like, Nintendo has struck out in almost every category that the other competitors excel in, but you're their number one leader because they speak to a wide audience, and they have, again, games that people know are going to be good. They rarely ever make a stinker. And they're surviving on their own, and that's amazing. But yet they don't want to use Nintendo as an example here on any court case. They want to dismiss these guys because they're not the in the powerful hardware. It doesn't matter. They're still in the games market. They're still taking the same dollar. If I spend $80 on a Nintendo game 1 week, that probably means I'm not spending $80 on a Sony game or an Xbox game, correct? Like, in most cases, that's how it goes for a lot of families. That's why a lot of people have the Switch. They buy Switch games only. And that in itself should be a big thing for this FTC. What about putting Call of Duty and all those Activision games that notoriously stayed away from Nintendo's consoles? Now you're going to put them on there. In some form or function, they're going to be there, which is huge for Nintendo. It's huge for the multitude of gamers in Japan and around the world who love Nintendo's platform but haven't come over to Xbox or Sony. So how is that not a big freaking thing for them? They'd be just like, so yeah, this is bad for gamers who? It's bad for Sony gamers apparently? Good for everybody else? See, like that alone, like this court case should be this shouldn't even be happening, this court case. Like, it's so bullshit.
I was thinking, like, that day that judge was getting pissed, I was thinking, like, maybe at the second half of that day, they might put it to rest early. Like, that's the way it was kind of leaning towards. Like, it was so bad that, like, the words gerrymandering are getting thrown around from, you mentioned Stadia, and I was thinking, like, they did a lot correct. The
service was pretty good, actually. Like, the gameplay, they were the best available at the time for cloud streaming, way ahead of Microsoft.
I want to say they got pushed into it a little bit before they wanted to, because, I mean, first off, they underestimated the market. How? I guess it's just like a lack of investigation into the industry, like, because they had very minimal games, like you said, and like that's what matters. And when they had like what did they have, like one studio, maybe two? I remember they had one studio and they shut it down, but they didn't have many studios. So how are how like?
Well, and their games required to be ported over to a Linux-based OS, if I recall correctly, too. Which, Steam is, like, Steam OS is that, and, the Steam Deck does run on it, and there's some good emulation tools these days, but I'd have to refresh my memory on that. I think it didn't necessarily work exactly like a typical OS, and that was part of the problem too. So convincing all these platforms and different IP holders to suddenly port their games was a difficult conversation, I think.
Yeah, and then like selling that to people like us and John 907 in the chat. He's like, cloud, who gives a fuck? Like it's nowhere near ready. And it's like. Yeah. Like, people are not going to want to give up their consoles in their homes until it's there, and that's just, it may never get there.
It's going to be a tough sell until they figure out a way to, do something about the input latency. And that's going to be, you got to figure out how to break the laws of physics. You got to travel faster than the speed of light in order to do that. The reality is we know that's not going to happen. And you've got things like Steam Deck and Asus ROG Ally nowadays. The handhelds are getting so powerful and so good. Who wants to stream? Reality. I think Microsoft said even in the trial, they're losing money on it. Their cloud infrastructure is costing them more than it's making them. Is that a future you want? Probably not. There's a good chance that xCloud could go away eventually too. I only use it when there's a game that I want to try and I don't want to bother installing it.
It's gonna take quantum computing for it to reach that level. Like like qubits, I guess, interact with each other over distance, instantaneous. It's going to take something like that. And my God, like quantum computing is just now,
That's a whole other thing.
Right. And like that's got to get, out of just the industrial circle. It's got to be put out there to everybody. And then, so like, how many years is that?
Yeah, there's a lot of scary aspects to that type of computing power. Like our best encryption in the world today would be cracked in seconds.
Right.
And, that in itself is a whole nother problem. It goes right down the path of AI, where they say eventually everybody will have their own personal AI, and its sole purpose will be to protect you from the other AIs.
That's wild, ain't it?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Anyway.
I'm bringing up the, this was shared versus Tom Warren, and it's from The Verge. And it says, Sony might be forced to reveal how much it pays to keep games off of Xbox Game Pass. The FTC case against Microsoft can unearth rare details on the game industry exclusivity deals. So they might be, but this was an older article, so I don't know if this has come to fruition or not. Perhaps they have. But regardless, that would certainly shed a lot of light on how much Sony is tossing out for these exclusivity deals, which would be quite interesting. I'm sure they had to shell out quite a bit to get Final Fantasy to stay the course. And it's quite interesting how they buddied up with Square Enix on a lot of things. You think that's if this goes through for Microsoft, that perhaps Sony and Square Enix crawl into bed together?
It's possible. I mean, I was going to make this point earlier and I forgot, but when you're Sony and you have the number of consoles they have out there, getting those exclusivity deals is way cheaper than if you're Microsoft and you have the number of consoles Microsoft has out there, right? This is one of the arguments that Phil was making when they talked about Bethesda. Exclusivity deals cost Microsoft way more than they cost Sony, probably at least double, and then some. That's the reality of it, you can't hide from that math. But it'll be interesting to see what Sony's paying.
I'm finding it hilarious that the judge is literally telling them to knock off with the silly questions, basically.
Yeah, she's like, I don't need that. Like, oh my God.
Like you guys are digging at straws or drawing at straws, whatever they say.
And when a judge says, I don't need that, I don't need that information because you've asked it, 100 other ways. And like, that's why I feel like they're just trying to get as much for Sony as they can out of this deal. Oh, will you, because it was asked about Diablo. Will you put, Phil Spencer was asked, will you put Diablo on the PlayStation, on the PlayStation? Sure. And that's his answer. Sure. Like, what? I don't even know what kind of answer that is. But talking about the Sony and Square thing, I feel like they've been like, having one night stands for a while now. I feel like, Square just doesn't want to put the ring on the finger or like someone, it's that relationship. You should put a ring on it or something. That's the conversation they're having right now, I feel.
Well, you know what? I think, Square Enix is the perfect example of how Microsoft, I think, runs their business plan moving forward. You notice how Square Enix is very strategic about which games are exclusive on PlayStation, which ones they allow to go to the competition, right? They're not all exclusive. So I think Microsoft will be essentially doing the same thing moving forward, is that if they do get the Activision Blizzard deal to go through, they will be on a select basis. So certain games that could probably use the extra injection of cash by being a multi-plat, they will probably leave them that way. But games that are guaranteed to be hits or massive hits, games that have a lot of social media and traction, hence like something like Call of Duty is gonna stay because they'd lose too much money by taking it away from PlayStation. But certain other games could certainly just go extensively Xbox only, so that would draw more people into the Game Pass ecosystem. Or they could certainly leverage the timed exclusivity thing, which I think is probably more the way to go, because if someone really wants to play the game, they're most likely going to go out and buy an Xbox hardware or PC or whatever it is, but they're going to get into the Xbox ecosystem, which is really what they want at the end of the day. Is they want more people into the ecosystem, and they don't care if it's an Xbox you choose to get, or if you want to get it on a phone, or you're going to play it through Game Pass on PC or however. That's the part that Microsoft is very adamant. They don't really care. They're going to they want your money. They don't care how they get your money. That's the thing. And that's what scares Sony, because Sony is 90% reliant on getting their money through one service only, and that's on their PlayStation format. And that's what's scary. That's what Mental brought up earlier. It's not the principle. It's not the exclusives as much as it's the business plan that's scaring the shit out of Sony, because they're changing how the market consumes games. And that means Sony either has to adapt and spend money to keep up pace, or they don't, and that's the thing. So I think ultimately that's really what a lot of this comes down to, is that Sony is getting uncomfortable because they're having to play a different ball game. Even though they're the market leader, they know that could slip away from them very quickly. So, and when you got a game like Call of Duty that's a massive marketing juggernaut, and you're going to see those ads all over the place with the big Xbox logo, that's all you need to know. People are going to go, "Oh, that game's exclusive on Xbox." It's going to work in reverse. Kids are going to go over and buy the Xbox because they think that that's now exclusive to Xbox. Just like a lot of people for years thought all this shit was exclusive to Sony. Like I said, and somebody said it on another podcast, we are that small anomaly of people that are in the know, and we know what's happening with games. Yeah. But a lot of the average consumers out there have no idea what we're talking about right now. They probably don't even know there's a business merger on the go. They just know what the games are and where they're going to find them and play them.
100%. And Sony has this knack for being able to advertise in a way that makes it look like even non-exclusive games are exclusive. Even if they have just like one little thing, like an exclusive weapon, they'll have exclusive in big letters, and then it'll say for whatever weapon in small print, and you don't really notice that. You just think, oh, there's the PlayStation symbol and it's exclusive.
Like the PlayStation 4 Pro, which had the big old 4K on the box, and I think they only had indie games that could utilize 4K.
Yeah, exactly.
There was only a small percentage of games that ever used the PS4 Pro to its potential, or apparently. So yeah, it was pretty funny.
Mm-hmm. Well, they have 8K on the PS5 box. So
we're sure focusing on the here and now about all this, ain't we? Like, well, I want to know what happens after 10 years. What happens when all these, because Sony will come around to signing that 10-year deal. What happens when 10 years is up?
What I think we'll see is a case. If it's financially viable, the games will stay on PlayStation. If, by some chance, enough people that like these games have decided Game Pass is the way to play them, and the revenue from the PlayStation side drops to a point where it doesn't make sense to make them anymore, you might see exclusivity.
Yeah. 10 years, the next consoles should be technically almost halfway through their lifespan. Because what is it? They're basically, due to this court case, Microsoft has kind of dropped that the next consoles would roughly be due in 2028, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So that's not that far along. That's 5 years out, essentially, a little give or take some. So there you go. So another 5 years after that, we're halfway into that lifespan. And again, I don't blame them for doing 10 years, because the market's going to change. You can't say 50 years, because in 50 years, for example, we might not even be playing games with a controller in 50 years.
You just be plugging into the back of your head there.
Right. You never know. It might be fucking fingertips on a touch screen. Who the hell knows how we're going to play games in 50 years? You've changed a lot already. Consoles, as we know it, are probably not likely going to be around in 50 years. I would say maybe one more gen, maybe two at most, before basically our consoles are inside of every television set. Essentially, that's where you're going to play. And we're all going to be digital at one point. The day of the dinosaur is going. I could feel my bones already rotting into decay over here. Old Noof Nukem. They're going to be making a Jurassic Park podcast about me one of these days. The last of the fossils. Yeah, so he didn't adapt, so he died.
Right. I'll bet Jim Ryan. I'll bet he's not even leading Sony in 10 years. Like, if he's not fired by then, I'll bet he jumps ship. And I'll tell you another thing. Sony better give that PS6 info to Xbox, because I don't think they'll survive long without it. Yeah. They're kind of, Xbox is kind of forcing Sony into check and putting them into check again and putting them into check again. Right? Yeah. You get Call of Duty, you're in check. Like, this was like Sony's one maneuver to get out of check. You know what I mean? They're like sacrificing a rook or something with this trial. That's what I feel like.
Yeah, I feel like this is a long long-term sort of play here, right? Like we all know, it's been well reported, Microsoft would happily put Game Pass on PlayStation. I think it might get to a point where, and I've probably said this 5 or 6 years ago in YouTube comments, and remember the old Google Plus platform? I got in arguments on there way back when about this, but I think there will come a day when you'll have Xbox hardware, PlayStation hardware, Nintendo hardware, but what you'll have on each of those hardware platforms is a store of some sort. Like on Xbox, you'd have a Nintendo store and you'd have a PlayStation store. You'd be able to buy their games there, and maybe they're only streamed through the cloud. And if you want the full, bread experience where you're playing on local hardware, you go buy the console. And, I could see that being the future of all this. They'll finally just put their pride aside, come to an agreement, and they have storefronts on each other's environments. And, you're playing maybe through the cloud, but at least you get to play the games.
That would be kind of cool, to be honest with you. You just go by one platform, and then on that platform, you had a store for each of the other competitors. Basically, like when you buy a TV nowadays, right? Like a smart TV. Yeah. And you get, how many streaming services do they have? They're not exclusive to one. You got Netflix, you got Disney, you got Hulu. They're all on. They're all on the one box, but they're all competing subscription services, right? Yeah. And you might be onto something. Maybe that's where gaming eventually goes. Is that there might be one box that kind of plays some of the exclusives, perhaps, but you could still enjoy the rest of the games. So basically, PC gaming, essentially, to the degree in the platform box.
To go into more of that, I've said this before too, and let me know what you think of this, Mental. I think that the next or the first console developer, whoever it may be, PlayStation, Xbox, whoever, the first one to do this, I think, is going to get a really good leg up on maybe the next generation of consoles. My idea is the next generation of consoles, and I've said this last gen too, so this is a generation in the making already. The next generation of consoles needs plug and play, just like kind of like a PC. Plug and play, interchangeable parts. CPU. You got your little CPU drawer. Boom, pull it out. Pull a new one back in. Whatever. Boom, there you go. It would have to have like some sort of sick motherboard and some probably sick buses on it, whatnot. Very advanced. Just keep it future proof, but. Yeah, plug and play GPU, just everything plug and play in this box. Something like the Series X, make it look something like that. Who cares? And it doesn't have to be pretty, but there you go. Now it is like a PC, but it's a simplified PC for console gamers, and it would run like a console. It would play like a console, have the security of the consoles. What do you think, Mental?
Interestingly enough, a good friend of mine and I, we had this conversation many, many years ago as well, around the time that the Steam platform was coming out and they were selling their Steam PCs and junk. And, we were throwing back and forth the idea, the merits of something like that and how it could potentially work. First and foremost, you'd probably, if you want to do something like that, I don't think it would be an easy task. Seems easy up front, but the thing that you run into, it's essentially, what are you going to save by doing it? And it's hard for me to really.
Well, what is who going to save by doing it? What do you mean by that?
What are you going to save the consumer by doing it that way? Right? How are you going to show the value there? Sure.
Because it might not be. It's kind of not going to be in the value, but where you're going to, I think, sell a lot of people on, because you got to sell the idea, right? I think where you're going to sell the people on is, all right now, well, we've got this issue, and they need to develop games like PC anyways. That would cut out the extra development time for these consoles as well. Games would be developed just like they would on PC. So that would be kind of one thing. There wouldn't be extra. That would be good for the company too. There wouldn't be extra, they wouldn't have to work around hoops for the.
So, I guess what I'm getting at is what's going to be a carryover, right? When you build a PC, you have a few things that typically you carry with you for as long as you can. It's like luggage. You have your power supply, right? That's one thing. You have your case. That's another thing. Generally speaking, in most cases, you can save a hard drive, so your storage can come with you. Depending on how frequently you update, your RAM may or may not come with you. The CPU, graphics card, it's a given. That's stuff you're gonna swap out, right? You're
Right.
after more performance. So
Right.
when you look at a console, it's the CPU and the graphics card are all in one chip. It's the way the APU is designed, right? So are you
And
going
I'm
to
saying
swap out?
get rid of
You're
that.
saying
Like,
separate
stop
them.
that.
So
Yes.
that introduces more cost in many respects up front, but that's okay. You're looking at potentially building something that you're gonna, have it move forward with you. So
Right.
are you gonna have the RAM hot swappable or swappable? Is that something you can do? So when I looked at this back then, it didn't make a lot of sense simply because of the way consoles are constructed and the value point that the price is set at. If you look at it in terms of cost to build, your cost to build is going to go up, right? Your BOM is going to go up, build of materials, all that stuff is going to go up in price. And maybe this is a good segue into the situation with Xbox raising prices, but ultimately, your build of materials will go up front, or it is going to go up, and then you got to look at, okay, how does the consumer have an advantage here? And I think in reality, the core package, the motherboard, at least in today's world, there's just no way to maintain value there, I guess. Because if you look at the PC world and specifically, the technology around RAM and things like that changes dramatically generation to generation. Like there's nothing in an Xbox One X that would be useful in terms of a Series X. The technology is completely different. So, GDDR5 versus GDDR6, right? GDDR6 has less voltage requirements. It runs way faster. There's a whole bunch of reasons why you want to use GDDR6. Your bandwidth goes way up. The RAM in the One X is completely useless. But here's even more to that, is that the motherboard's useless too, because the PCI Express interchanges between the RAM that communicates back and forth with that's all different too. Right? So it's not like you could drop a Series X processor into a One X and change the RAM out. It's just not happening.
So would you be able to hot swap even those PCIe?
No, that's all circuits right within the motherboard, like that's built into the system. So all of it's constructed around the core of what that CPU uses, right? So yeah, it's just not going to happen. Like if you look at AMD, because they're using AMD, at the time that the One X was built, you were talking PCIe Generation 3. Well, we're on Gen 5 now. The bandwidth doubles with every generation.
Okay, so you would have to basically have those two parts come together then and hot swap that whole section out.
Yeah, so at that point, that comes down to what are you actually saving? You're saving a case and a power supply. Well, guess what? The power supply is questionable now too, because the Series X uses a fair bit more power than the One X did. So now you're bumping into that boundary. You're basically swapping everything and saving.
Well, that is the end goal, right?
Well, it is.
To make it future.
Is there a cost saving?
That's what we're talking about here. I don't think it would be cost.
Is it future proof though if you're swapping everything out? What it might allow you to do is do your own mid-gen upgrade.
Exactly. Or
you might
generational upgrades.
Yeah, you won't be doing generation over generation though, because the generational upgrade changes too much, right? Yeah. You're not going to be using Zen 2 anymore because Zen 4 is out, and guess what? The next one will be built on Zen 5. So that's
all right, gents. Well,
anyway.
Yeah, we're going to wrap it up here. Our conversation's kind of going off into another direction, but either which way, FTC versus Microsoft still continues, and there's a whole lot of stuff to get into with that. Like I said, you could basically spend weeks talking about some of the, some of the good stuff, some of the bad stuff, and everything in between. But either which way, we'll come back and perhaps wrap things up in a few weeks or whatever, if there's any interesting developments, and obviously after the court case is closed. Shout out to the chat. We got amazing people here, including our good brother from the original Next Level Gaming podcast. Our good brother Fastback is here. Good to see him in the chat. Or Rob is hanging out with us. We got AKA Phasma. She's now known as Prey. She's hanging out with us too. Good to see you. Princess Zelda's still hanging around in the background. Thimber is here as well. Who else we got going on here tonight? Lots of great people. Kylo Milo's in the building. Good to see you, Kylo. Curry Cosmo, Spider-Man 356, RWK 88. Masshole is here. That's always good to see Masshole. Remake Station 5. Jim Ryan even taking time out to come and stop by the podcast. And many, many more. You guys are amazing. So let's get into sorry.
Can't show up to an FTC hearing, but he's here. Woohoo.
On a small little podcast, the Gaming Fuse, yes. He'll get grilled less over here.
Can't make it to the court case. I got to go check out Gaming on the Gaming Fuse.
All righty.
Sorry, go ahead.
Next one is still related to Microsoft. Something we kind of saw coming, kind of writing on the wall. I mean, I said this months and months ago, and I said it's coming, and it's inevitable in the business industry. The question is here is the timing of it. I'm referring to the fact that Xbox is, somebody leaked it or they came out and said that they're going to increase the cost of Xbox Game Pass. They're also going to increase the cost of the console, so at least the Xbox Series X in most countries, with the exception of the United States. Due to economic reasoning, they're saying all that sort of stuff. This is where I kind of call bullshit because I think it's just following Sony's lead here. They know that Sony is doing well with the extra price increase. And to defense of Microsoft, yes, they've kept kind of prices pretty stagnant for the most part. They've certainly been one of the more affordable and more economical choices out there. I mean, heck, they've had lots of great sales compared to the competitors. You've got two alternatives now with the Series S and the X. And even though they're coming out with another Series S version, the Black unit with the 1 terabyte hard drive at a measly, like a small increase in that one, but rightfully so because of the bigger hard drive. But here we are, price increases coming for Game Pass. My biggest thing is, look, I knew the price increase would probably come. It's only like $1 or $2 or something for the Ultimate, but at the end of the day is now the time. And secondly, guys, they're not increasing it on PC Game Pass. And this is the part that makes me a little bit angry because once again, we've been saying this, that the console owner gets treated like a second-class citizen, even though the Xbox console platform gamer are the ones who help build their gaming platform to where it is today. And we constantly keep getting like a bit of a slap upside the head. It's like, if you play on PC, you get it all free, or you get it for next to nothing. But if you're a console owner, screw you. So what do you guys think about it? Like I said, it's not a big increase, but it's coming. And is now the time, especially with all the crap that's going on with the court cases and everything else. What do you think? Titan?
I think a lot, but Titan go first.
I mean, it doesn't hurt my feelings. $1 or $2 doesn't hurt my feelings. Like if it was like $5, that would be like, wow, that's a lot for one increase. But this is like, at least it's like so small. It's like a pill. It's like swallowing a pill, like kind of sucks at the beginning, but then you're going to get used to it. And then the effects of the drug are going to start kicking in and you're not even going to notice it anymore. Right. So, this kind of goes back to what I was talking about last week. And I think the week before is whenever, I swear, being an Xbox fan is just so weird because you get so elated at times and Xbox does so many good things. And they'll get that momentum going, and then it'll come with an asterisk, and they'll do something wrong. They trip over themselves. They do something.
So true.
They do something to kind of take a half step back, and like this.
Look at all those games, but you're gonna pay more for them.
Right.
Exactly.
It is only like a small half step back, but it's still a step back. Like why are you? They're kind of bending their knee to Sony again, like they're matching their price points. Why? Be the one. Be the freaking one, man. Be the one to beat. Don't fold over and play like everybody else. is like in.
Do you
My
think they
God,
wanted
how
to
many
get the
more
announcement
billions
out
are they going to
now?
make by this dollar increase? You know, is that going to make a big difference?
Titan, do you think perhaps they wanted to get the announcement out of the way now, so it wouldn't look as inconspicuous after, say, the ABK thing goes ahead, and then all of a sudden everybody goes, "Oh, look! Now that you got Activision Blizzard, you're gonna leech us all for whatever you think we're worth, right?"
Yeah.
I
So
think
maybe
that would
agree.
get
make
it out
more
now,
sense.
it doesn't look as bad.
It's a preemptive price increase.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they've been basically told by regulators you're not allowed to increase prices, or that's your plan. You're going to get this and then you're going to increase prices. Well, they're doing it first. So, it takes that sting away, I guess. But even honestly, the Game Pass increase doesn't bother me much.
No, it's not. Like I said, you can't afford the dollars, so my God, how broke are we at all?
Yeah, you probably shouldn't have it in the first place in that case, but it is what it is. It's the cheaper way to play games, so anyway, it's the hardware increase that really bugs me. And because I'm a PC guy, I know the price of these things. Like NVMe drives, even the 1S, like historically, we're over 2.5 years into this generation, right? This is when prices should be coming down. And okay, yeah, there's been inflation. Big freaking deal. NVMe drives have fallen by about 1/3 of what they cost at launch. So to tell me you need to charge $50 more for the Series S because it's got an extra 500 gig in it, that's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Because that 1 terabyte drive that's in there now is way cheaper than the 512 was at launch.
Right.
Same thing with the chips in these things, right? That you look at the cost of one of those APUs, and the Series X or the Series S has done nothing but fall in cost dramatically. 7 nanometers no longer cutting edge, right? They're talking 3 nanometer these days. Those are the wafers that are expensive. 7 nanometers cost about half of what they did at launch. So the chips have fallen by half. NVMEs are 1/3 of the price they used to be, and they're raising the price on the console. It's BS. That's my opinion. I think it's garbage. They're doing it because they can. They're doing it because the market accepts it, and it's business in the end. I get why they're doing it from a business perspective, but it's BS.
Don't worry,
from
Trudeau will probably slap his own damn tax on the consoles up here. It'd be like the leisure tax or some fucking thing if he gets his way.
Oh yeah,
more than likely. Doesn't the
likely.
series consoles use a 5 nanometer process?
No, they're 7 nanometer, and they've been updated to 6 nanometer, but it's still a 7 nanometer wafer. It's just an improved process on it, so they get some space savings, which makes the APU even smaller, and therefore they get more yield off a single wafer, like a 30 centimeter wafer. Used to give them, like let's pick a number, 100 chips. Now they're getting 120. So if anything, the cost goes down even further, and not to mention over time yields go up. So you have less bad chips that are on those wafers as well. So costs have done nothing but come down. Anyone that says otherwise is just wrong.
That was a big point when these the PS5 and the series consoles at first came out. I remember the PlayStation 5's yields were way worse than Xbox's yields were going for a while there. I don't know if that's improved, and I imagine that improved in time, right?
I would hope so, yeah. They should be doing much better than 50%. I mean, 50% was terrible.
Yeah.
And then, that's a whole nother conversation. I won't get into that. But it's not good. There's a number of reasons why I didn't buy a PS5 at launch, and that's just one of them. And, you're seeing some of it now with these overheating things from
for us
Canadians.
Sony has always treated us Canadians much worse than Xbox. Trust me, I can tell you that right now.
They have, yes.
Because when the Xbox matched the Xbox One price to the PlayStation 4 price back in the day, shortly about, 4 or 5 months later, Sony upped the price on PlayStation 4 up here in Canada by about $50. And they did it with every one. The same thing at launch here. The PlayStation 5 was it was $629, which was already $30 more than the Xbox Series X.
Yeah.
And then they jacked it up to now, I think it's $649 now Canadian, if not more. Yeah. And then plus your tax rates. And Mag will always tell you he's got that Ontario tax down there. It's like 13-14% or some shit. It's ridiculous.
It's not much better where I am. It's 12 here. But
Oh, man.
yeah, I mean, it turns an $80 game into a $100 game. That's the reality. And it's $80 because we live in Canada. It's not 60. And now when they're 70, well, guess what? They're 90 here now. And that's, it's not
And
cheap.
your taxes go to help pay for all those lazy fuckers who can't afford games.
And they're bitching about that $2 Game Pass Ultimate increase. But yeah, no, it's
15% Curry, yee.
Yeah. Anyway, like I say, for me, the Game Pass thing, one thing, the hardware price increase, though, there's no excuse for that. That's just bullshit. And that's it.
Noof, like, what is it to you? Is it a tough pill for you to swallow? Like, what's your opinion?
Well, look, I mean, I don't like Game Pass on the best of days, right? So, I mean, I'm lucky I still have it. But yeah, I've come around. I mean, it's a reality of the business, and I think one of the part of the reason I finally gave into Game Pass was when there's this many games coming out, and your friends are all playing them, right? And they're essentially playing them at a fraction of the cost than you are because you're waiting and sitting there patiently for the collector's edition or the disc version or whatever else, or I just need to go out and buy it. So, like, say if you play 3 games in a run of a month and a half, and you're basically paying what in the States? $12? $12 a month? You're paying like $16, $17 up here for the Game Pass Ultimate, right? What? And then I'm going to go pay $90, $90, and $90. I've essentially paid... right, I've paid nearly $300, right, for games that you essentially paid like less than 30 of. So, look, the math. Look, buying games was never really an issue for me, right? That's not really the thing. If I want a game, I've always found a way to go out and get it. Whether it's with cash in hand or with a credit card or whatever it might be. But at the same time, it's about the frequency of the games now. They're coming out so frequently, and I just honestly you'd have to be a madman essentially to not jump into Game Pass. You can still buy games you really want. Like, I didn't hesitate to buy the physical copy of Psychonauts 2, right? Paid $100 and something for this whatever edition it came out. It took a while to get it because it didn't come out at launch, but I bought that game because I love that game. I love Psychonauts and I love Double Fine. And I bought Halo Infinite, on disc, even though I could play it day one on Game Pass. And I will continue to do that. I'm going to do that with Starfield. I will buy the games that I feel emotionally connected to. But at the end of the day, again, the backlog is so big, and you can't really necessarily afford to buy everything. And I think that's where the beauty of Game Pass comes in. It not only do you not have to buy everything, but you can try a lot of games that you would have probably been on the fence about. And perhaps you do go out and buy them. If the deals are good enough, you'll buy a game. Case in point, I'm not really a Dark Souls kind of guy, but I went out and just bought Mortal Shell because it was like $3 on the store. $3. I'm like, that's less than a freaking shitty ass cheeseburger here at McDonald's. Okay, $3. I said, fuck it, I'm gonna buy it. $3. Like, even if I hate this damn game, I've hate some of those cheeseburgers even worse, right? Mm-hmm. So I'll get it, and I actually do like the game. So there you go, right? Case in point. But that's what it allows you to do. Like, Game Pass allows you to play stuff. A beauty little gem I played recently that I absolutely loved and didn't think I would like was Ravenlock. Love the game. Beautiful little game. Great art style. Not overly complicated. You can pound through it in 6 or 7 hours probably, and you pretty much get 1,000. Although I didn't play it for achievements, but it is nice to get them as you're playing. You don't have to sort of wander off and do 5,000 remedial tasks to get a 10-point achievement. But either which way, there you go. I'm into the Game Pass ecosystem. I'm likely going to stay now because I'm invested, and I got a lot of, and like I said, you got to keep up with the Joneses. Every time a new game comes out, people move on. We got game ADD severely these days. People move on very quickly, and you get left in the dust. And, nothing worse for me than go back and playing a game I really want to play, but finding out that half my friends list have no interest in playing it because they played it day one on Game Pass, and I'm the late guy jumping in. But anyway, get ready to wrap up the show. Look, the price increases. We knew they're coming. It is what it is. They suck, and nobody can say otherwise. And I don't want to be sitting here and be like, oh, well, I'm okay with it because it's Microsoft, right? I'm not okay with it when Sony does it, so why would I be okay when Xbox does it? I think most of us feel the same way. You can't be a double-sided that way. I don't like either one, But in all fairness,
that's my main problem with this with this trial, man. They're not putting the shoe on the other foot. They're not, you know, they're
Yes.
grilling Xbox about exclusivity, but man, I really hope a lot of this comes into limelight because in the pregame you were saying about something about Xbox gets to look at Sony's records now. What were you saying about that?
Yeah, well, according to the article, it said that they've demanded that Sony disclose how much they've been paying for exclusivity on various titles, what they're paying out, how long they're for. You know, we saw that. We saw how they, you know, that. So maybe we'll find out the real reasons why Final Fantasy VII Remake never did come over. You know, a few things like that because there's a lot of stuff that's.
Yep.
You know, they just recently pulled that. Was it that? What's that game? It's coming up with the sexy chick in it. But anyway, they pulled that one off. There's like a whole bunch of different games that basically just went absentee. And I don't know what's worse is finding out it's supposed to come out for Xbox and it doesn't, or not knowing it's not coming out at all. Because when, you know, Final Fantasy VII Remake was supposed to come out on Xbox, hell, they displayed it on their stage at E3. Right?
Yeah.
So you talk about a double kick in the nuts. It's bad enough, okay, from day one, you know it's not coming. But when you tell you it is, and then all of a sudden you go, where the fuck is it? It's been like over a year, and it's nowhere to be found. I literally know fans who were waiting that literally did not buy the PlayStation version or buy a PlayStation because they were hoping and waiting for it to come to Xbox after that year, and it didn't come, and now what, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, like Sony plays hardball. We know that. They've been doing it for years. So now that Xbox starts to throw a few punches back, I said it in, you know, one of the chats. I said it's like the old bully. It's like the old bully thing, you know, where the bully keeps picking on the kid, keeps picking on the kid, keeps picking on the kid. Finally, the kid says, you know what? Fucking enough's enough. Or it's more like, you know that sometimes those little mouthpieces that pick on you and keep going, and they pick on the big kid at school, but the big kid never does anything. Until finally he picks on the big kid long enough, the big kid turns around and slugs him one. And then all of a sudden, you know, he's got a black eye and the big kid's in trouble now because he actually defended himself. It's kind of like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you keep stirring up the bee's nest long enough, you're going to get stung. Sony been stirring it up for a while.
I want to see Jim Ryan get stung on in that courtroom. That's what I want to see. That guy, they need to like summon him. Absolutely. It needs to happen. Like, you have got to be here, and man, do I want to see him grilled. Just take out all my frustration on them right at that trial. That's what I want.
And I get the feeling that the FTC is too hung up on Microsoft, the company, as opposed to the games division. Like, they're too focused on where Microsoft was in the past, or maybe things that happened through the Windows ecosystem, that they think that this is Windows all over again in a console format, which it is not.
Yeah, they did bring that up, didn't they?
They actually asked that question to Sarah Bond. Well, you need a Windows license to use cloud gaming, right? What? Shows you how lost they are. I mean,
right.
Geez.
Maybe it's time to get some actual gamers in this FTC instead of a whole of cronies, right?
Oh man, yeah, mind numbing. But
Mind-numbing,
I agree
absolutely.
with you, Titan. I mean, keep that same energy, as Crop Gamer would say, right? Like, let's find out what's going on and do it, right? Get that
Satius
Jimmy
in the
boy
building.
in there.
Dreadpool's in the house. What's going on, guys? Good to see you. Boss Mod Lethal Papa. Look at all these Xbots, he said. Papa, don't make me ban you. There you go. Best moderator in the business right there, Papa. Got a short fuse and a big hammer.
There you go. That's what you need.
Oh yeah, he moderates the big pod. This one's easy for him. He can do it with his eyes closed. He's only got about 20 people watching. Doggy Dog still hanging out with us. Woof woof. Yeah, it's good to see you here, man. But anyway, let's get ready to wrap the show. I thought this week, you know what? I think I'm gonna let Handy Andy sit this one out this week and leave the conversation open for Safe House Sam, because he hasn't been here for a while, and I think he's kind of itching. So let's bring up some questions for Safe House Sam as I knock on his door, and we'll see where he's at. Safe House, you in the building, brother?
Yeah, man, Safe House Sam is in the fucking house, baby. Yeah, it's been a long time, you sons of bitches. That's what I used to say, you bunch of cock asses. Yeah, you bunch of cock asses. two of these motherfuckers on the panel right now. Actually, the three of them. It's a bunch of cock asses. We got a bald cock ass and we got a loud cock ass. Up in here. What's going on? All right, what's going on down the chat up in here? I hope you miss motherfucker. Yeah, this Safe House here because it's been a while. Let me tell you, when it's been this long before I've been talking, my mouth is so dry that my fucking cock has got fucking scabies. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, let's go. I'm dehydrated. Deflated. Let's go, motherfucker. You guys got a fucking question for Safe House because I am ready to roast some nuts up in here. Let's go.
It's been a while since he's come out, so I don't know how long he's gonna last with that with that dry voice.
Bro, I'm telling you, motherfucker, I'm telling you, my voice is drier than a nun's buns right now. Let's go. What's going on, people? You got some questions for Save House? Anybody? How about you, mental, whatever the fuck you is? You got questions? Titan Drago, I know you always got questions. You full of shit all the time.
What have you been up to? Where you been? Where you been, man?
Fucking Lion Brian, whatever the fuck he wants to call it. All I know is he's a fucking asshat if there ever was one. He is number one cock ass, number one.
You just like curse throughout your entire question.
We had to put up with fucking bad teeth and small t-shirt Jim Layden for years. He was bad enough. He was like a social reject from the fucking Muppets, that guy. But now Jim Ryan, he on a whole nother level. This guy, he fucking out there. He is out there, I tell you. He's like my grandpappy. Just the fucking Alzheimer's haven't set in yet, right? He's getting there, though, because he don't know what the fuck. He don't know what day is coming to go. All he's doing, he's over there. I think he's an accountant, because all he's doing is counting money. Money he gets, money he loses. He's just like a puppet. He's a puppet for these Japanese fucking guys over there. That's all he is. He pulling the strings and he dancing. He's like a marionette motherfucker. He's a cock ass. I got no time for him because he lies through his asshole. That motherfucker farts and you can't even believe it.
Take a breath, man. You're losing it. Fast Max got a good one. He says, what makes your house safe, Sam?
My house is never fucking safe. As a matter of fact, my house, the day it was built, the fucking security company came in and loaded it with tripwires. I gotta sneak out of my own fucking house. That's right. They don't want me getting out. They don't want me anywhere in the public. I can't go anywhere. Nobody likes to say that, Sam. Why? Because if you had to go to the grocery store and I was talking like this at your fucking till, you'd think you'd like me either. You'd be like, who's that arrogant son bitch? He fucking can't shut up. He's fucking louder than the sirens outside.
Oh, boy.
Like, when I hear him, I want to think of, like, what was that?
We got APXRP. I think he's KRCP in Cincinnati. What's it? That fucking show. What the fuck was the name of that show? JRK.
WKRP.
WKRP. We got fucking APXBP. Can you fucking stop spelling your name like the alphabet? Jesus Christ. I'm fucking dyslexic over here. I'm having trouble reading.
Baby, if you've ever wondered. I still know that whole song, man.
Oh, baby, Johnny Fever. That was like one of my heroes back in the day when I was growing up as a kid. Oh, yeah. Les Nessman. Oh, yeah, man. That was the show, man. They don't make shit like that.
Traffic helicopter.
The fucking turkeys in the helicopter show. God, that was a fucking classic. That was the best. Dropping it from the sky. I wish I could fucking get in a helicopter, drop a turkey on some motherfucker. As a matter of fact, I'd go to Sony headquarters and drop a turkey on fucking Jim Ryan. This one
Kylo
is Satya Nadella, first class.
Kylo Milo says, Safe House, how is it $2 for a cup of coffee?
I have no fucking idea. Coffee between the cup and the coffee costs you what? 3 cents? 4 cents? 5 cents? I don't fucking know. It doesn't make any sense is what it does. All I know is some cock ass at the coffee companies thinking they go pay $2. Hey, you know what? Actually, $2 is kind of cheap for a coffee because you go to fucking Starbucks and you might as well stir it with your fucking dick because the shit costs like $12. I can finger a chick for cheaper than $12. Okay, I can stir her pussy for less than $12. You know what I'm saying? Goddamn Starbucks, what the fuck you guys putting in there? Just more than creamer in there. That's for fucking sure.
It's famous cream, man.
Man, it's fucking Starbucks.
Wow.
What the fuck is going on? You know society is fucked. We got global warming and we got fucking Starbucks. And I guarantee you, when the fucking hurt ends, Starbucks will probably be all that's left. All them rich assholes going up in Starbucks. Yeah, motherfucker, you bunch of cock asses.
All right.
Wow.
That must have been a hurt. I could
That
feel
was
you. I
something.
could feel the strain in your voice, man. Like,
Wow.
I'm telling you, Niff Dukem, he ain't even gonna be able to speak to his old lady tonight.
you'll be able to finish the show.
All righty. Anyway, thanks,
Wow.
Safe House Sam. Always opinionated and always emancipated. Yes, that guy is crazy. And don't worry, we'll bring back the other guy next week. We're gonna give him a break. I thought we'd bring in Safe House because obviously he sounds frustrated and stressed out, and we thought we'd let him get a little bit of that off his chest here. So there you go, man. I think my blood pressure's high just listening to him.
Yeah, he barely took a breath. I mean, that was something.
Yeah, I think he breathes through his ass. He's got gills in the anus, I think.
It just flows from the bottom and out the mouth, and yeah.
That's right, bro. When he inhales, it goes up to the bottom.
What do they call that? Verbal diarrhea? Is that what that is?
He can do that thing that like flute players play, man. Like breathe in and
my.
hold at the same time.
Well, AP, we're glad that you had a good time and you're having a laugh, man. Because that's why we're here. That's why we're doing this show. To talk some shit, talk some gaming, and have a few laughs while we're at it. So I think that's it. We're going to wrap it up. We're at actually 90 minutes, which is again far longer than the show was intended when I started it out. But you know what? That's how it goes.
60 minutes. That's it.
Yeah, it was supposed to be 60 minutes. Mental's like, that wasn't in my contract, bitch. You said it was 60 minutes. I was in and out and I could go to bed. Oh, yeah. All righty.
All good.
Thanks for that, man.
All good.
Awesome stuff. Let's let everybody get out of here. We'll start with Mental9R, a fantastic new addition to the Gaming Fuse. Let people know where they can at least check you out on social media if you do not have your own YouTube or other social channels.
Well, I do have YouTube. You can follow me there. I haven't put anything on it if you want to, but I am on Twitter. I try and check in there once a day, maybe a few times a day. It depends. But and that's at Mental9R. Yeah.
Nice.
That's
there
it.
you go, guys. Check them out. Give them a follow on social media or on Twitter. And again, come check them out again next week. We should have another great show lined up for you when we get back here next Monday night. And yes, to the man who's so huge, we call him Titan. He can't contain himself. Titan, let people know where to find you, brother.
YouTube and Twitter at Titan Drago. This week, I got to give the Common Sense Award to Thimber in the chat this week, man. It seemed like every time I looked up, he was saying something interesting. Made me think a couple times during the chat today. So, Thimber, way to go, buddy. I wanted to give it to you again, Mental, but I don't want to sound too biased or anything, you know, because you, once again, man, you did it. You brought your knowledge on the show, and I love having you here for that, man. Appreciate
awesome.
it. Till
Thanks
next
very
week,
much.
everybody, keep bringing the common back to sense.
Indeed. And you guys know where to find me, always in the gutter. But when I'm not hanging out here with these two fine gentlemen, you can normally find me on Thursday nights hanging out with KY Bob and company on Game Set Live, which goes down at the exact same time as this one, just on KY Bob's channel. But speaking of that, Game Set Live, at least through the private DMs, it seems like there might be a possibility that podcast changes its airtime. And based on all feedback I'm given from Bob at this point, it probably looks like I am no longer going to be able to make that show, which sucks because I did enjoy being there. Great group of guys over there as well. I really enjoyed my Thursday nights, but at the end of the day, you know, Bob's got some things on the go, and schedules change, and unfortunately for me, I don't get off on my work weekday nights. It's till at least I get off at 6 p.m. Mountain, so that's 8 p.m. Eastern. So that's why I can't make it. Like, that's why I've had to leave other podcasts in the past. I keep telling these guys I can't get home, and I'm not going to rush in the door and just, you know, and try to get this crappy ass computer going. So
Especially if you're driving, man. Holy cow. Drivers down here in the South, that's probably the worst thing about here in Georgia, man. When we moved down,
you know,
geez, oh, Pete, it's just wrecks galore, and people just Like I've never seen people cut off so like ridiculously. Even like my wife, man, like oh, so bad. Be careful
Yeah,
on them roads.
it's brutal, man. It's terrible. You know, obviously, one of the reasons this podcast was a little bit earlier because I was hoping that it would accommodate Titan's schedule a little better than the previous podcast we both co-hosted together. And so far, so good. We'll see how it goes, obviously. But yeah, I like what we got going here. We hope that you guys have enjoyed the 4 episodes in so far. And if you have any comments, questions, or anything about the show, let me know. If you wish to be a guest on this particular show at any point in time, all you have to do is send me a DM and say, Noof, I'm down. But speaking of guests, we will have one next week. And I'm just going to bring it up here because I got to make sure I confirm it here. But we will have a guest next week on the podcast. And it's going to be Sergeant Sentinel Gaming. I don't know if you guys know who he is, but he's been around for a while. He makes some pretty good content. He's a podcaster on the XPN network on Tuesday nights and all that good stuff. So hopefully we'll get him here next week. A little military expertise coming in to the show. It should be a good time indeed. So nice. Sergeant Sentinel next week on July the 3rd, next Monday. So up until then, guys, we hope that you have a fantastic day, fantastic week, and all that good stuff. So yeah, that's July 3rd. So we're right on the precipice of Independence Day. So that means you'll be around and half in the bag, Titan.
Half in the bag? Oh yeah. Half the bag, half every show.
Maybe we'll get some gaming in on the 3rd. Who knows?
I'm on spring break. I'm on summer vacation, man.
Oh, that's right.
Gaming every day.
Yeah, you're wrapped up now. You got all the time.
Wrapped up.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, it's gotta love the United States veterans, Canadian veterans. I'm a big supporter of our veterans and all that they do for us and go through on a day-to-day basis. So shout out to all the veterans out there and the people that are still enrolled in our Army, Navy, Air Force. You guys are fantastic. You're amazing, and we. Do
you know if he's actually if he was actually a sergeant, or if that's just like
yes, no, he actually. I saw pictures of him. He actually was in the United States military. Yeah,
nice,
right on.
A little bit to talk about. All right,
absolutely, good stuff. Anyway, the chat. You guys have been dynamite as always. We'll see you again next week. But until then, take it easy, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Cheers, folks.